What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? It is Matty Peveril here with another episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. Not here with Marky D this week. Marky D is taking a break from all things Steelers, although he's not really. I saw him put a video out the other day. I also saw him message me about Steelers. You know, he did actually listen to the Mad Monday show the other day. So, yeah, he's time to take a break, kind of not. But we are here with you with all your Steelers content. Daredevil, you're already in the live chat. But what I have done as well, I have brought on a very special guest for me. He's someone that I never not enjoy talking Steelers with him. I love it. I miss it because he's still with BTSC as a writer and with the Steel Curtain Network, which is part of Fan First Sports. And so we don't get to do as much as we used to together. But we are getting to do it today, and I'm really excited for that. And here, Marky D's in the live chat. Yeah, see, man, you can't stay away. You love it. But that's what we love as well. But I'm going to bring him into the show. It is Mr. Shannon White. Good sir, how are you doing? Oh, we don't have his audio. Let's just... We got you there, Shannon?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I can. You had your mic turned off.
I had a mic mute because I was coughing. I didn't want y'all to hear that. But like I'm saying, I'm doing great. I've been excited all day to be on here. I got too excited, forgot to turn my mute off. But it's always great to be on with my brothers from down under. I miss seeing Mark, but it's great to be on with you, Matty P, and talk some Steeler football.
Well, we'll just kick things off first. I mean, we have Holden down here, which is kind of gone, and it's, GM Chevrolet, right? At least you're not wearing a Ford shirt. I'll take that as the win. Right? I'll take that as the win. But look, I mean, it has been a while for us. I mean, you and I love talking, everything from draft and player development and defense. And, we've had many robust conversations over the years, for want of a better phrase. But I think, number one is that we sometimes we come at things differently, but we definitely see eye to eye on so many things.
Yes.
I want to rewind because we didn't get to do the draft stuff, and I actually truly missed it. So you and I are going to find a way to fix that for next year. But I want to rewind. We're going to go back in our little Steelers time capsule, a few months. Steelers close out the season, win the games with Kenny Pickett, down the stretch, the fourth quarter comebacks, the comeback kid, all this sort of vibe. There's some players departing. You're clearing out guys like Devin Bush, who I think, you couldn't wave goodbye to him fast enough. Yep. There's a few different other moves that are made. We start to see the whole hype around the pick that Claypool had, the trade for Claypool and the rest of it. But going to the free agency side, I want to start there because Mark and I, and I'm just going to let you go for it, right? But Mark and I, when we were planning some of the shows we did around free agency, I said to Mark, the first thing that's going to happen is that for the first few days of free agency, everyone's going to be putting out that meme with the stick man poking the Steelers logo, asking them to do something. But that's not what they're going to do. They'll wait for the first 2 days, for the first few waves. And then, educate Steelers fans know this. And then they're going to go out and they're going to go get guys. And I said, but I do think we're going to see more guys, than we usually do. And I think we're going to see some real pillars of a championship team. Hence the title of today's show. So with that in mind, with free agency, I guess I got two questions. One is, which do you think they made the most impactful moves for? Was it the offense or the defense? And then secondly, and it can be the opposite one as well, is there a particular player on the offense or defense that they brought in, or you can take it as re-signed, that is, as I said, this pillar of how you build a championship team, or speaks to what they're trying to achieve?
Well, I am so excited about Omar Khan and Andy Weidel. This connection, the dynamic duo of the con artist and the master of the round bellies. These guys have had a tremendous offseason, and they are doing things in the modern roster building.
Yeah.
For so long, Kevin Colbert, the first 10 years of his tenure, his style worked, but then it became stale, and he was unable, when they had the killer bees, to make the necessary moves to put a few defensive players around that offense that would have got them over the top, because they hoarded future draft picks. They would not, they did not have any kind of ability to move up and down the draft board because they did not have relationships within the NFL with other GMs. You bring in Omar Khan, but the key hire was Andy Weidl because he does have those relationships. And he has already set a blueprint in Philadelphia, and the Steelers are like, that's who we want to be. And if you look at the way he did in Philly and what the Steelers were building this offseason, the similarities are eerie. So to answer the question, this first part, to me, Isaac Seumalo was by far the biggest hiring of the free agents period for the Steelers. You're bringing in an all-pro level guard who is not only an all-pro, but he is technically and fundamentally sound. He is going to raise the level of play. Whoever's playing left tackle, whoever's playing center, he is going to elevate and it's going to make Kenny Pickett so much more relaxed. A comfortable quarterback is a confident quarterback. And last year, Dotson was just totally blow an assignment and end up, maybe it was Dotson, maybe it was Dan Moore's guy, but they was guys just coming wide open inside. And Pickett realized that. So if you noticed, he's always flushing out of the pocket. And we know that he is athletic, but that is not the way. Quarterbacks do not like congestion at their feet. So having Seumalo was a brilliant addition. And I think people is going to just be shocked at the difference and how it's going to impact Kenny Pickett, how it's going to impact the running game. And you're going to have Daniels give up no sacks, and it's Seumalo give up 2. You're going to have a very stout interior offensive line. And this is something that the Steelers have needed to invest in. And we won't get on Jones because that's on the draft side. But it's something that we're seeing this new front office understands. Now, they did more on defense because they didn't overpay. Colbert would have overpaid for Sutton. I guarantee he would have.
100%.
Because he loves familiar. And he knew what he was getting in Sutton. He would have overpaid for him. No, they resisted it. They let Sutton get that contract. I'm happy for him. Good luck. They brought in Patrick Peterson, a veteran that not only has plenty left in the tank, is already faster and more athletic than Sutton ever was, but he's the perfect mentor to what the plan was all along in the draft, which we'll get to that later. So then they answered my prayers and that they totally revamped that inside linebacker room. Last year was rock bottom for me. When Jack's come in, I had people that I knew down that way said, he's done. And you're all going to find out as the season goes on, he's going to wear down and he's going to, and that's what he did at Jacksonville. He did the same thing last year with Pittsburgh. Guys get older, especially movement guys, and then they start having these injuries pop up. We're all there. Well, I'm old, so I know about this. And that's what happened to him. Devin Bush just didn't care anymore, guys. I mean, come on. The guy just did not care. And I can't.
Hey, first round, he had top 10 pick money.
Yeah,
I mean, he's set for life.
I cannot handle that. So I wanted him gone, and I am so happy. Now, Spillane, I think they would have brought back. But the Raiders come in like they often do, and they're like, hey, man, we're going to throw starting money at this guy. Hey, I'm happy for Spillane. This is an undrafted guy that they're paying to be a starting linebacker.
Well, he fits what they want to do with what they've done with Denzel Perryman, right?
Yeah, and
he's just a younger Denzel Perryman.
I think he'll do good, but I think he's being overpaid.
Oh, yeah.
Because now the Steelers have replaced him because they brought in Holcomb to play Mac. They brought in Roberts to, he can be the buck. He's very similar physicality to Robert Spillane. Mark Robertson, I think, is going to be a little bit of a blend eventually, but he's going to learn coverage. But Nick Kwiatkowski.
I don't pause there as well.
Yeah.
Like, Robinson, with his speed, having played running back, and his size, if he can learn coverage over the next 12 months, right? It's not even about this season. This season, it's blending him in.
Yeah.
Next season, Mark Robinson. Next season, Mark Robinson is going to be. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for another year with him learning, like in coverage. And we already know he picked off Kenny Pickett in.
Well, we heard about that, yeah. See, I'm a huge Mark Robertson fan, as you know. But I was telling you, they got Nick Kwiatkowski,
Yeah.
who is really a kind of a mirror image of Robert Spillane. He moves a little better than Spillane and has better instincts, but he's not quite the hitter that Spillane was. But he is that experienced fourth inside linebacker. And they even brought in Tanner Muse, who's an upgrade over Marcus Allen.
Yeah.
Because Tanner Muse can be that coverage linebacker maybe at times.
Anything's an upgrade on that.
That's what I'm saying. And excellent special teams player. So, then, I don't want to forget, they brought in, because I'm not real high on Kanal O'Neal. I wanted them to bring back Edmonds.
You and I are aligned there.
Neal is a box safety, and he's good at that, but he cannot cover tight ends like Edmonds could. But they brought in Brendan Fahuku and Armand Watts, and I believe both of those guys are an upgrade over Chris Wormley and Isaiah Loudermilk. And Loudermilk's position could be in jeopardy.
Oh, I think things.
Because he did not progress at all in his sophomore season. But I'll leave it at that, and hopefully I answered all that as far as free agency.
So if you had to pick, one player, offense, defense, that's going to be upgrade their position department and their side of the ball this season. Who is it?
Oh, like I said at the beginning, it's Samalu
all day. All right, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, all day, every day.
Awesome stuff. You unpacked a lot there. I think you and I definitely in alignment on a lot of those things. I'm glad you brought up Fahoko, and I'm glad that you brought up Armand Watts. You know what? I kind of dismissed the Armand Watts thing when I saw it, but then I started delving into some of his stats and actually what he's done. Same thing when people do that with Shandon Sullivan, right? I've heard takes over the last month about Shandon Sullivan, or the last 6-8 weeks. Shandon Sullivan is not a slot corner. And to the point, Mark and I were doing a show, and I just went, that's actually a total crock of crap. And I went through, and I'm like 86% of snaps in the slot last year. You go back, he's like only a slot corner. But I said Armand Watts, I think, is a name that a lot of people are sleeping on. And when you see him, particularly when he's playing with the ones and the twos, because he'll get time with the ones in the preseason games. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, wait, who is this guy? What's he doing? Especially because they're going to find ways. I love Benton, and I can't wait to start talking, draft picks with you. But I think when you think about Benton and easing him in and letting him develop, because remember, a lot of Seal fans forget Cam Hayward wasn't, the gun player that he is now first year, right?
2 years.
Exactly. I think Benton will go. I think he'll actually move a bit faster than that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like Mark and I want to get your take on it too. The whole Dan Moore versus Robert Jones thing. You don't just necessarily start someone just because of their pedigree, and you've got to have guys to come in. But I see Montravius Adams as a guy that doesn't make the roster. So, and I'm actually keen, for when we can catch up again on this show to take you through some of the depth chart sort of stuff that Mark and I do each week. But let's move to the draft.
One more thing.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Key word for Armand Watts, for anybody who's not familiar with him, is the key word for him is professional.
Okay.
And having that on your depth chart is very, very important, because you have a guy that is reliable, and he will fulfill his responsibilities, and he knows his responsibilities. He's a professional, and that's something that Loudermilk has not proven to be.
I completely agree with you. I think Loudermilk, goes missing way too much, and I think the Wisconsin connection. I think you and I were talking live with BTSC when Loudermilk got picked. I'm pretty sure you and I were on together. And I'll never forget. I'll never forget that one. All right, let's do it to the draft. You and I both have draft crushes. I think we both last year can talk about Chad Moomer to the cows come home. And that's there's some things that I like out of Holcomb, even though he's not as big and he's not as rangy. There's some things they do on tape, and there's actually a little bit of similarity, right? Hopefully, I'm hoping you agree with me on that one. But you loved the bloke that went to the Chiefs, the Sky Moore, that's the one.
Creed Humphreys.
Creed. Yeah,
I mean Christians.
So, who was there a player with this draft that you fell in love with that you are hoping the Steelers picked? And if so, which team's he sitting on right now?
Well, if I know you didn't get a chance to follow a lot of my draft coverage.
Yeah, I watched some. I did some, but not everything.
Everybody knows I was a huge Jack Campbell fan.
Yep, as was I.
Out of Iowa, I just thought he would be perfect for what the Steelers need. Eventually, have Mark Robinson playing next to him, but he was selected where I think he should have been. I think around 18 by Detroit.
Yeah,
and so I think that he'll do great with Dan Campbell. I think he'll be a great fit for them. I think they got him a really good one. But yeah, I'd have loved to see him in Pittsburgh.
Well, I actually thought that the Detroit, he did fit Detroit. I had it in my mind that Minnesota was going to trade up with Detroit, get the corner in Joey Porter if the Steelers didn't pick him, and then they would pick Jack Campbell in the early 20s because I didn't think Campbell was going to.
Because that's where people thought he was going to go. Yeah,
correct, right? So I mean, I feel like we probably, because I remember one of your articles with him. I know that there are other players outside of that, but I was pretty high on him pretty quick. Mark and I did something in early Feb, late Jan together, and I was like, yeah, and this guy out of Iowa. And the thing I loved about Jack Campbell too was that he trained for so long with Luke Kuechly, right? And Luke Kuechly to me is just like listen to that man talk.
Yeah,
just
prototype.
Legend. All right, what about was there an offensive player that you particularly loved? Because the running backs went high. Like Bijan was always going to go about that, but Gibbs went really high. Really high. Was there, and there's a lot of wide receivers taken, right? So
yeah. Well, there was one, because we didn't need a quarterback, didn't need a running back. Of course, the offensive line, there was, a couple of guys, but we got one of them. But a wide receiver, I cannot think of his name, the wide receiver from Ole Miss.
Yes.
I'm an old man, and it's not in front of me right now, and I cannot remember.
I can bring it up.
But
anyway, keep going.
Because the Steelers are going to want to go run heavy, he's a slot guy capable of stepping outside. He's a slot guy that was
Jonathan Mingo.
Jonathan Mingo, yes. He was a slot guy with 4.4 speed, 6'2", 6'3", 225 pounds, put up like 20-some reps or 30 reps on the bench. He would have been a massive mismatch out of that slot. Little corners, he'd have just knocked them out of the way. And then he could have been great to help with the running game. But, of course, they didn't really have a shot at him. But my offensive target, they got. That's what I'm saying. This draft was so incredible. The best draft I can remember. See, I was alive in 74, but I was a little boy, baby. So this was the best draft in Steeler history since 74. And Darnell Washington, he's not perfect for all the teams in the NFL.
No.
But he's perfect for what Pittsburgh wants.
Yeah.
Because as a run blocker, he's going to maul people. And then as soon as you try to bring in size to match up so that he don't dominate, he's going to run by him. And they're wanting to go run heavy. They're wanting to go play action. He is going to be perfect with Freiermuth and Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I was a bit of a Zay Flowers fan, so I'm a little bit disappointed he's going to Baltimore.
Yeah, he went to Baltimore.
That's good. And that's why I'm glad they've got a guy like Neal in. So all right, let's just do it then. Let's get to the Steelers draft picks. Now, I have to stand on my soapbox a little bit here and say, and everyone listens to TDU knows this anyway. I didn't want Porter at 17. I felt he was if he was going to get in the first round, it's the back end. He wasn't the best corner in this draft. And I kept saying it. I felt like I was going to be on the Pickett, Malik Willis train from last year, except this year I was going to lose because I won on Pickett. I was going to lose on Porter, right? And Broderick Jones was my top tackle. Again, people can go back to February. I actually think he's going to be a better prospect in the right system than Paris Johnson. I do think that the bloke that Chicago was meant to take that's going to kick inside the guard, I don't think he's a tackle.
Shit.
I haven't had my coffee this morning, so I'm a bit slow.
Winooski? No.
Skronowski. Yeah. I think he'll be kicking side to guard. So there was really only 2 top tackle prospects in this draft anyway.
Left tackle, definitely.
Yeah, left tackle, legit first rounders. Darnell Wright was. And Darnell Wright, I mean, I didn't mind Darnell Wright. I think he can play on the left. But again, I think you pick him at 17 and that doesn't work out, you've got a problem. But the fact I had Broderick Jones as my top tackle, right? Yeah. So I got to say it, right? And I said to Mark, and I've said to all our listeners on this show, I've said on different things I've done, social media, whatever it is, that you get Broderick Jones, someone will draft Paris Johnson way too high. You go get Broderick Jones, you're set, right? And you get that even if Porter's available, because that's what you absolutely have to do. You build the line first. We can find fixes at cornerback. Anyhow, obviously we know how it played up with trading up to get Broderick Jones at 14, which made sense because the Jets were in for him. All the hype for them.
Yeah.
I was thrilled and I felt like the Steelers were genuine about it when they brought Jones in for a visit. I was like, maybe they are cooking a trade up, right? I kind of thought the Jets might even trade back in the draft. So I kind of thought that there was a scenario or a world or multiverse dimension where he was still available at 17. But I want to look at Broderick Jones, and I know you want to talk line and Joey Porter, but as I said, I mentioned that I didn't feel Joey Porter for a number of different reasons shouldn't have been picked at 17. One of those is which is if you're not going to complete the majority of the drills that someone's going to do as a cornerback, I take a bit of issue with that. That raises a question for me. And there are other things in that process, and he doesn't fit every style of defense. And even though the Steelers played like the amount of man they played last year, that's not historically been what they've done. And so like the versatility becomes a question. But what in your mind when it was around Joey Porter were some of the things that you were like him, maybe just not in the first round?
Well, I know we had talked about it a little bit on Slack, and I'd seen you make comments, and we had a lot of our colleagues were really high on Porter and wanted him there, and I didn't. And everybody was like, because I don't know if you've seen the draft show when we did the podcast right after the pick. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was not super excited.
Yeah.
Because the Steelers are notorious for being a soft man zone coverage, pass coverage. And everybody says they play man. No, they don't. That's not man. 4 yards off. And then, you're following the guy, but he gets a free release. You got slow cornerbacks. The last few years have driven me crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if they are going to select Joey Porter Jr., they've got to commit to press coverage.
Correct.
He is excellent at press coverage. He's got that incredible wingspan, and he's got decent speed, and he can excel at that early. It won't take him 2-3 years to learn the Steelers system, as a lot of guys have to. I wanted that first round. I was praying that Jones would fall because I've said it before and I'll say it on here. Broderick Jones is instantly the most athletic left tackle in Steelers history, and it's not close.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Larry Brown was a tight end for his first 4 years, and then he moved to left tackle for the Steelers in the 70s. He's the only guy even close to having the athleticism that Broderick Jones has. His potential is through the roof, and I just love his intensity. I love how he finishes blocks. They have needed to build the foundation of the offensive and defensive line for years now. And Colbert kept bringing in shiny new toys and skill position guys, and he neglected that because they got so lucky with having, let's say, Mike Munchak take a bunch of guys off the undrafted free agent pile and build them into something special as a unit. Valor Andre, Ramon Foster, Matt Filer. I mean, the list goes on of guys that they were really lucky and fortunate. Well, eventually all that good fortune runs out. And the last 3 years, the offensive line has just went down to where I thought before last year, they had hit rock bottom like the linebackers did last year.
Yeah.
Now that Colbert's gone, I had so much hope that Andy Weidel, man, when he gets there, he loves the round bellies. And he's going to be looking he knows, man, that's how you build championships is you control and dominate the line of scrimmage. And so not only did he bring in Samalu, he took the best left tackle prospect, and they made it happen. The fact that they was able to get Joey Porter at 32 is a steal. But then that's told me, hey, they're going to start doing more press coverage. I was excited, and maybe that fourth round area, that's where I had Corey Trice. And I said, man, he's the doppelganger for Joey Porter Jr. They are the two most similar cornerbacks in that whole draft class. And I could not imagine Corey Trice falling past the fourth round.
I had him in the late fifth just because of what you were hearing out of injuries.
Yeah, but everybody was talking about that knee. But I thought that when he was able to go to a smaller brace and then take it off, I thought he was probably recovered enough. I think he had an alignment issue because he kept having issues on that right side.
Yeah.
And you know how it is. With the NFL, you got chiropractic, you got physical therapy. They're going to take care of that. And which you don't get in college, that level of chiropractic care. So, but then, like I said, you end up getting Keanu Benton, who's a guy that after the guy from Georgia, who Carter,
yeah.
He was a generational talent, but a generational egghead too.
Oh, I wouldn't have picked.
So that's a very scary proposition. Yeah. Keanu Benton has no character issues.
No.
But he is, if you watch him, they were showing him the first couple days at OTAs. You can't tell he's a defensive tackle. He moves around. He is put together. He is physically fit, no extra body weight.
His line speed.
And he moves so effortlessly laterally.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't asked to pass rush a lot in Wisconsin. It was a different scheme. I think they're going to set him loose. I expect him to be very effective and eventually maybe move over to Hayward's side.
I was going to say, to me, this is Hayward's understudy.
Yeah,
this
when
is just
Hayward leaves, they're coming to a big decision on his contract, and I'm excited they got Benton. But
they're not cutting Hayward loose.
No, you don't want to do that. But will he take a reasonable contract to, let's say, slide in like Tyson Alulu did?
Yeah,
and finish his career at nose tackle? Because Hayward's plenty strong. He don't like it though. And I think that would be the way to keep him effective longer.
Same.
And on a championship level team, if he'll slide inside. But we'll have to see. But, then you get Darnell Washington, like we already mentioned. You get Nick Herbig to pair with his brother, Nasty Nate. But Nick's the same way. He plays like his hair's on fire. I like guys moving forward. I like guys who care and who are all out effort till that whistle stops and maybe a little longer. I don't want Devin Bush and Miles Jacks staying 4 or 5 yards off, watching, read, react. Maybe the play will come my way. I hope it don't. I can't stand that. The guys they brought in are attack downhill style. That fits what the Steelers like to do. So we didn't have a fifth or sixth. So I wasn't expecting anything grand in the seventh. And when they said Corey Trice, I had to write the grading the pick article immediately after. I couldn't do it. I started doing a deep dive. Why did he last to the seventh? I did not even realize he hadn't been selected yet. Because you know how it is, you get up and we're having meetings, we're having podcasts. I didn't realize he hadn't been selected.
So I did in the week leading up to the draft, I did my top 75 players over 3 days, right? Which is, I started doing it last year when we were still with BTSC, Steel Curtain Network, right? And it's one of the hardest things you can do. Like Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks do like a top 50 and they do a top 150. Doing 75 is very, very difficult. And the way I do my top 75 is I pick players across all 3 days so that there's options across the 3 days, because sometimes, there'll be positions that, there's a run on, there's not a run on. There's also a situation where you're pretty much only going to pick one guy, maybe in an odd year, 2 guys in the first round. So having 30 guys in the first round, doesn't make sense. So I like to spread it for Steel fans, 75 over 3 days. And I had Trice in there as a starter day 3 pick. And Mark will tell you, because one of the things that Mark and I did on this channel, which was one of the most crazy things we've ever done, we got up at 2 a.m. We streamed the whole of day 3 live at 2 a.m. From 2 a.m. We woke up. I'd been up late the night before because my cycle was already disrupted from the previous 2 days. So I kid you not, I was in my study. It's light right now. It was pitch black when we got up, and Mark and I did I think it was a 6.5 hour live stream, right? With a lot of people that are in the live chat right now. They were in there. They kept us going. We did all sorts of things. That was about 3 hours where there was very limited to talk about because the Steelers went 120 picks without a pick, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that was quite funny. And then we'd go off and do break off shows when they announced picks. But when Trice was sitting there in the start of the 7th round, and because I had these names and I just basically fill them in every time someone got picked or I'd take them out. And Trice was sitting there, I was starting to really cook up to it, right? And so when Trice finally came, when we were about 10, 20 picks off, I think I messaged Mark in the private chat or something, and I might have even said to him live on air because by that stage we were pretty delirious. And I was just like, man, let's start looking at Trice. And I started to go into the Trice stats. And then, sure as eggs, then they pick Corey Trice. And I was absolutely thrilled and I was ready to go on it. So there's a nice little snippet from that show of me delirious, talking through all these different stats with him and his versatility with safety sets and 6'3" and the speed that he's got and all the rest of it. But going back to it, because you had him in the 4th round. I mean, this idea of this press coverage is going to be, to me, this is one of the components, and again, fits from the title of today's show, that when we look back on this, what they did in this offseason at the end of 2023, and they've been to the playoffs and they might have even won a playoff game, it's like, how did they set themselves up to do it? Being able to play press in an AFC where there's more and more receiving tight ends, bigger wide receivers, particularly in the AFC North. I mean, you talked before about stopping tight ends, right? And Terrell Edmonds. One of the biggest weapons in the AFC North, who I don't think gets enough credit, is, and I would, when he becomes available, I'd swap him for Deontay in a heartbeat, is T. Higgins, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's T. Higgins. I know there's a...
I thought you were going to say Mark Andrews.
Well, I mean, yeah, but we got Freemuth. And I think Mark Andrews is another injury off, that's being it. But I didn't mean tight end, but I meant like from a wide receiver perspective.
Yeah.
But Higgins is kind of this hybrid between the two, right? When you actually see what he can do, you got to have guys that can go up there and stop him, right? And you've got to have guys that can go up and press when these guys go outside, because that's the other thing about even Mark Andrews, with the way that some of these AFC North pass catchers, I'll call them, so receivers and tight ends and even some of the running backs get the ball. You actually look at the spread where they end up on the field. Sometimes there's guys that start in the middle of the field or near the line, right next to the line of scrimmage, and end up in the far corners or near the sidelines. So the idea that you've got two guys that can roll in and you've got insurance policy for each of them, really, if one of them gets injured, I think is awesome, right? But it allows you to go play things like cover 6 again, late in games. It allows you to, stop a Joey Burrow right in his tracks or a Josh Allen. So I kind of love that they're doing that. But I think there's also, and you rightly started talking about it before, people have to understand there's a difference between a man coverage based defense and a press coverage defense. They're not the same thing.
No. Well, one thing, when you take a guy like Corey Trice, and I finally figured out why he had fell, and I think a lot of teams are going to regret that. But when you bring in a guy with his dimensions and pair him with his doppelganger and Joey Porter Jr., let Patrick Peterson mentor and guide these young men. What's the best way to help a young corner? Is to give him playing time in certain packages, sub packages, dime package, without putting him on an island by himself. Well, you've got Minka Fitzpatrick, you got Kazee, who can play deep. Kazee's one of the best deep safeties in the NFL. And he can have protection over the top, and you can set him up, or you can move him in the slot. Let's say a team like Baltimore with Mark Andrews wants to drop him into the slot. Trice can match up with him. No, very few guys have the length to match up with a guy of his size. They're talking about they can use Patrick Peterson in the slot. You got Sullivan. You've got Elijah Riley possibly. You got Corey Trice. I mean, last year they had limited options. Millette was not a good cover. No. Now they've got multiple options. And if you can make that quarterback hold that ball over 2 seconds with the pass rush, if TJ Watt and Highsmith are both healthy, that is going to really benefit the Steelers. So I was so excited about Corey Trice. And I know a lot of people said, well, you're just warming up a 7th-round pick. Not all 7th-round picks are created equally. 7th-round picks are often guys who are athletic, who are making position changes, or they're guys who are unathletic and they're going to try to prove themselves, that they can play at the NFL level. Corey Trice has neither one of those problems. And then just to finish out with the last selection, when they took Anderson,
Maryland, okay, this is perfect because I was going to say, what do you think about the other section? Because I am very high on Spencer Anderson. I'm very high on him.
When they took him, I was like, who? I mean, I'll be honest. I went a deep dive on linemen, and I was like, I don't know who that is. So I started looking into it, and I know some guys from Maryland. And they're like, oh, dude, he played all 5 positions, and he played them adequately. He is awesome, very versatile. And look at his RAS score. I think it was like 9.63 or something like that. I mean, this is a 6'5" guy that don't have little, T-Rex arms like our backup centers have had for a while. This is a guy, I think center could be his future.
So this is interesting, right? Again, you beat me to my question. I was going to say what position is he, right? Now, when I said live when they picked him, I think he's the Steelers' next center, and they're getting a bigger center in him, and he will fit a bit more of a Mason Cole mold with the height, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've watched tape or you probably knowing you probably have. I've watched a fair amount of tape on Spencer Anderson.
Yes.
I don't think he's a tackle in the NFL. I'm open to them trying him at center. He is a very, very good right guard. And his ability to get people to the second level, to pull, to switch literally from one side to the other side in a flash, to pick up guys. He's always looking for another guy to smack. Any big play that Maryland had last year. And I'm talking about, he played pretty darn well against Ohio State in 2021. The game I watched against Michigan, so Mazai Smith got taken before Benton. Mazai Smith got taken, I think, in the end of the first by Cowboys might have taken him, right? But Mazai Smith,
I think it was,
Mazai Smith was considered that because he was on Bruce Feldman's athletic list, right? As a super athletic guy, which is the only reason why I had Benton as number 3. Originally, Benton was my number 2 DT, the defensive end in a 3-4. Well, Spencer Anderson blocks the what out of Mazai Smith and shut Mazai Smith down. There's a play where Tagovailoa is literally in his end zone, and Mazai Smith's coming through, and Anderson just absolutely takes him out of the play. And this is the thing. So I sit there, and it's why I think Dotson still is someone, I've said it for over a year now, that could be moved before the season. If he's not great, you've got a really nice depth piece, but I still think he could be moved because you bring in Nate Herbig, you've got Sam Mully there. Now, from the backup center position, you'd see the Ryan McCollum. Unless you're going to move Sam Mully in, and they're not going to do that. They didn't bring him in to do that. And Sam Mully, if you go back to when Sam Mully was drafted, they considered he would end up a center in the league, not actually play guard. It's funny how that's worked out. But Ryan McCollum, apart from Cole, is the only one with any center experience. So my only fear for Spencer Anderson is that he is penciled in as the center because he's only played about 356 snaps, I think it is, at center in his college career. How good he is or not at that. And we're not, and as I said, I did a center show about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I said, we're not going to know that until training camp, what that looks like. Yeah. But I know Kendrick Green, the small arms and what have you. I do think the Steelers, he needed a year to learn to snap the ball. He didn't need to be Big Ben's, final center, snapping the ball, 3rd-round draft pick straight out of that. He could have done things better. He, unfortunately, we're all blessed or not blessed with what we were given, by God physically. And then and how you learn to snap the ball. And I just don't want to see them ruin Spencer Anderson because what I see on tape is a solid offensive lineman that can move.
See, Kendrick Green did not want to learn to play center.
Yes.
What people don't understand is center is requires the most level of intelligence outside of the quarterback on offense.
It's the middle line. It's the middle linebacker of the defense.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it's similar to that middle linebacker that has to wear the green dot. Guys suffer from the paralysis of overanalysis.
I love that.
If you make some guys think too much, they do nothing. Instead of, maybe trying and blowing an assignment, they end up staying there and do nothing. And how many times do we see Green do that? Green one time helped. He should have got half a sack on Ben because he actually helped take Ben down, trying to knock the defender off of Ben. I mean, he was just like a lost ball on high weeds. And so the Steelers have brought in a guy in Holcomb who likes wearing the green dot. He's proven wearing the green dot. He's accomplished. Well, what really disappointed me most about Kendrick Green, it was not fair they threw him into that. But I'd never seen the passion to learn that. So when he went into that offseason and he went to see Marquise Pouncey, he was asking for pointers how to be an NFL lineman. But he never said in that interview that he wanted to be a center. And then he admitted it when they give him an opportunity to compete at guard with Dotson, that's what he wanted. He hated playing center. Well, guess what, dude? You're never playing guard in the NFL. And you're either a center or you're nothing. Well, they've been patient with him, and they're giving him another chance. And if he fully commits, I just do not think he can overcome his limitations of length. And I would feel much better because we know Nate Herbig can play some center.
Yeah, I want to bring that up because Josh has put that in live chat. He's played 49 snaps at center, though. I
at the pro level.
I know, but I mean, that's why I'm more comfortable with Spencer Anderson being groomed there.
Well, yeah. Now, I'm all for Spencer. To me, Spencer has to make it at least practice squad. Because who else would you rather have on the practice squad is the guy who can fill in if all 5 positions. And
mate, we're on the same. Wait, if I pulled up, I've got a depth chart that I pull up on this show. I can do it for you now. Hopefully, it doesn't crash it. Right. I have a and everyone here will know it. So I have. You and I might be able to do this on next week's show. Best of the rest. Where have I got it? Here we go.
But while you're looking for that, I am very high on Spencer Anderson because I think he's a guy that they could develop because Mason Cole's got 2 years left on his contract, and the Steelers are going to want to maybe upgrade at center because, they always look for their next Hall of Fame center.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody's kind of expected Dan Moore to maybe slide out and knock Okorafor off of right tackle. But if you could get a guy like Spencer Anderson and let him focus on one position and then he progresses to where he can be the starting center, again, what great value, and you could use your draft capital in another position.
So I have this Steelers depth chart that Mark and I like to do. I don't know how big it is or not big it is from your side, Shannon. I might make it a bit bigger. So the blue, just for the background, of players that are probably on the practice squad at best. Green are people that are going to float between the practice squad or the team. Red is someone that I expect to be cut. Now, this one's as of the 29th of May. I haven't made too many changes there. So, since that, but it's just very funny when we talk about Trice and, we talk about Anderson and McCollum, and you and I are completely aligned on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I thought I just had to bring this up and show you it because
it's pretty uniform. It really is.
So I think I'd probably switch though. I ask you this one just as a bit of a random question is on the punting position. I think Big Press is going to be. I think he's going to be hard pressed to actually win that again. I think Braden Mann's coming in to take that job.
Presley Harvin has been a big disappointment. And we all made excuses during his rookie season. But last year, he just, as a punter, a kicker, that's all you do. So consistency, reliability, that is the most important thing for any kicker, whether it's a place kicker or a punter. And I really just do not trust him. I honestly, just like the guy he replaced, which I don't even want to say his name because I'm afraid he'll come back. But
he had a good year last year. He was a top 5 player.
He wasn't with us. He wasn't with the Steelers. I cringe. I hold my breath because I don't have any faith in him. Now, man has also been inconsistent, has a big leg. Yeah. But when the Steelers needed Harvin to really get on a ball and really clear some field position, that's when he shanked it the worst. When they asked him to really, the way he drops the ball, it's very inconsistent because he drops it and he kicks the tip. And then, listen, Prez, I understand Harvin. My belly gets in the way sometimes. And I think sometimes if he drops that ball too close to himself, belly gets in the way and he don't see it. So I do think that his position is in jeopardy.
Love that. I got to ask you, because I feel like he's your sort of player. What do you think about Monty Potterbaum?
I love him as a player, as a personality, but I do not want one-dimensional fullbacks anymore. The Steelers don't use them enough. They're talking about using Harris and Warren in conjunction more often.
I've talked a lot about that with Mark.
Well,
that is going to be a nightmare that is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, and you've got Connor Hayward, who can do so many things as an H-back. He can line up and play some fullback. He can split out into the slot. He can do so many things to create mismatches. He is an offensive weapon that Derek Watt never was.
And the bonus,
so I am very excited about Connor Hayward's impact in Canada's offense.
I love it. Mark, I've been talking about this. You know what I also like about Connor Hayward that people like? He's the guy that you like. I think with them, they should work out a deal where they don't suck a big cap hit, but sign him for on a 5 or 6 year. I know it sounds crazy, but you just agree to an amount now that averages $2 or $3 million a year, and you just go, you're a Steeler. Like you're a Steeler until your early 30s. This is what we're going to do. And in 2 or 3 years' time, if he starts to drop any speed, you let him put on another 20 pounds of just sheer muscle, because you get a guy like that blocking at fullback, and moving around, because he'll still have some speed about him. Mm-hmm. But you do that with his low center of gravity, the offense has a problem when he runs into a linebacker. They're gonna have a real problem, right? Because he could easily put on 20 pounds and be about 250, and absolutely, even guys like, we talk about the size of Vince Williams and the size of Mark Robinson. Those guys aren't exceeding. It's very rare you have a 250-pound linebacker, like middle linebacker even in the AFC. And if you do, they're usually like an Edmonds type. That's Tremaine Edmonds, that's 6'5", and they're not actually necessarily coming down like that. They're doing a lot more athletic things because of their range with their height. So if you get a guy like Connor Hayward with even just that quick burst that he's got, because he's going to be quicker than some of those bigger, downhill running linebackers. You got that speed with a bit more size on him and his experience. He's almost always going to be a matchup nightmare. That's the great thing about him.
Connor Hayward was a 4.71, 4.73 guy.
Yeah, it was 4.73. Yeah.
Yeah, coming out, and he is quicker than he is fast, but he's sneaky fast. Because he doesn't run full speed all the time, and when he gets a chance and he gets a step or gets a little bit of separation, he accelerates, and they're turning around and like, oh, crap. He did that multiple times last year, especially down the seam. And, again, I just think with the play action, the mismatches they're going to be able to have all over the field with him and Darnell Washington and Calvin Austin III, the security blanket and Allen Robertson, this is a totally different offense.
Yeah, and again, hit it on the head. I was just going to, the word I sum up with him is that I feel like Connor Hayward's one of those players, and not even all the best players do this. He knows how to move in space. It's actually a term you use a lot in rugby, right? Is move in space. And how do you maximize the space around you? How do you, deceive? That's, again, I would like to say, Deontay, I think, can position himself in space. I don't think he can move in space because he drops the ball too much when he's on the move, right? Mm-hmm. But Pickens is a guy, knows how to move in space, right? Freiermuth knows how to move in space. Mm-hmm. I did think it with Najee in his first year. I think it a little bit less, just being honest, in what I saw last year. Too much of this like quick feed. I'm going to try and be Le'Veon Bell when I'm not Le'Veon Bell crap. So I don't want to see that this year. I mean, it's hard when you've got the line capitulating on top of you. I have a couple of questions that I think you and I can talk about for probably 30, 40 minutes. But so I'm going to save them if you're willing to come back on and join us all next week. So everyone here live, Shannon will be back next week if we can do it. But I want to ask you a bit of a controversial question, again, in line with what we've got for the title of the show. Is there a move, player, coach, otherwise from the Steelers that you didn't like this offseason? And you can't say bringing Matt Canada back, right?
Well, that was the obvious number one. The first thing that came to my mind, which I feel better about that by bringing in Glenn Thomas and giving him some help as a passing coordinator, because I really have faith in Matt Canada as a run game coordinator of using his H-back, using his tight ends effectively. He just cannot design plays to get his receivers open. That's where hopefully Glenn Thomas will be able to come in and be a real asset. Because we know Mike Tomlin's a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
And so, like in Kansas City, Andy Reid handles that. Shanahan handles that. All these guys. But when you're a defensive-minded coach, the quality of your offensive assistants is paramount. And I think that Matt Canada.
Well, especially when you think back to the Steelers, like Ken Whisenhunt. I mean, Todd Haley, like him or hate him, he can run an
Bruce
offense.
Arians. Right? I mean,
exactly. Oh, well, yeah. No, like, I mean, I don't think about Bruce as he gets his quarterback killed, but like, there are some very good Steelers offensive coordinators if you actually look back on it. Is more my point. Sorry.
Oh yeah, definitely. When they signed Allen Robinson, I'm like, what are they doing? We don't need a washed-up veteran who, just to mentor these young guys, because Deontay Johnson has no clue. But once I started looking, his production was because once Stafford was ineffective all year, he was hurt.
Yeah.
Cup went out. That offense just fell apart. And if you see a difference now, Allen Robinson is right now, before Kenny Pickett's wedding this week, he's up there working out in New Jersey. I bet Kenny Pickett's fiance hates him. He'll probably try to go on their honeymoon with him. She's be like, no, so she's going to put her foot down. But that's the kind of commitment that we want to see. That's the kind of commitment that, and an example to teach a guy like George Pickens how to get clean releases, how to work on his footwork, how to sell his routes, because he really struggled with all that last year.
Yeah, and
but also what he's going to be and mean to Kenny Pickett is that reliable. Pickett's going to drop back and he's going to be like, you know how Ben did with Hines Ward, Heath Miller, all these kind of guys. And Pickett had that a little bit with Freiermuth last year. You look for that guy, I'm in trouble. Where's my security blanket? Where's the guy I can count on to be where he's supposed to be?
Yeah.
Allen Robinson brings him another one.
Well, I heard Allen Robinson, and everyone, when we've done this show, you should go check it out. I heard Allen Robinson on the Rich Eisen show, which was actually hosted by Tom Pelissero this week. And, we all wash it. We'll make him sound washed up. He's 29 right now, turning 30. As someone who's 32, I'm like, it's not washed up.
You're not washed up, man. You're not washed up.
But you listen to how he's gone and the different things and how much the Steelers wanted him originally and all these different things. I've been saying all offseason, everyone goes, he's the slot wide receiver for the Steelers. I keep saying no, there's no slot wide receiver. They will move people around.
Yes, exactly.
Because Allen Robinson's best production in this league is not in the slot, right? I actually think we're going to see Pickens move around a lot more. Obviously, you'll see Freiermuth in the slot. I think you're going to see a bit of Deontay in certain sets, to be quite frank. But I agree with you. I think Allen Robinson is an absolute I'll go as far as to say I think he's a unsung addition to this, or unheralded addition to this Steelers offense. That
definitely,
like week 8, week 9, Steel fans are going to be going, holy cow, right? And the other thing you heard Patrick Peterson this week on the All Things Covered podcast talking about Deontay and what's impressed him about him. This keeps Deontay on his toes. Right?
Yes.
And that's the other thing I love about this.
I want to say one more thing to answer your question, which I never really did.
Yes.
My only question was bringing Canonial.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up.
Edmonds leave, because it got to be a pissing contest, and it was about respect. And Edmonds is like, I don't feel respected, and the Steelers were like, you don't give us any splash plays, we're only going to pay this much. So he actually went to Philly for less, but he has an opportunity to make an impact on a possible Super Bowl team. And that's the only position out of the whole roster that I think the Steelers downgraded this offseason.
100% agree. 100% agree. The other thing that riles me up that I see out there on Steelers internet is, Kazi can play strong safety. No, he can't. He's 170. He's 170 pounds. Not in the AFC. No way. Not against the pass catchers and all the tight ends. Absolutely freaking not. But what I did, the other thing that worried me was there was no real. I don't think there's a. I have questions about the sub package versatility of the Steelers linebacking core, right? So that's why I was interested in a guy like Dane Henley in the draft. I
liked him. Yeah,
the movement that they bring in with Nick helps because it means that Keanu doesn't have to come down for everything. But I think Minka moving around and even Pat P probably moving back into a deeper safety role at times, and having Kazi deeper safety. I'm feeling a bit okay about it. But you know what? I was thinking about this week because this is the one question of the Steelers defense that I've had the whole time, because you and I are definitely aligned on that. Mark agrees as well. I know that is, if it doesn't work, Omar Khan will pull the trigger and go get someone.
Yes.
That's the thing that makes me feel a little bit more confident about the whole thing, is that, like, if it's not working week 3 or week 4, boom, we'll go get a guy.
Don't be surprised if 2 to 3 weeks into training camp and early preseason, if they make a move, that's the reason why. They see the issue and they will address the issue, because this group is not hoarding future capital.
Oh, no. This is
because they know that if next year we don't have a fourth, they will work around and they will trade and get another fourth like they did this year. So that is the creativity that has been missing. So don't even be surprised if it happens in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, that's I keep saying to people as well, like, I think this roster, where you compare the roster at the end of the second preseason game versus what it is week 1 will be very interesting, because I think we'll go after people that are cut. And people know. Like, that's the other thing that I feel like the Steelers got back this offseason. They got their mojo back, where players have always respected the Steelers franchise, and free agents have respected the Steelers free agent franchise. Mm-hmm. But you bring in guys like Pat P and Allen Robinson, and you go make splashes in the draft, and you've got the Khan artist ringing around the NFL media at a national scale, which doesn't always happen with the Steelers. Like, players know what this team's out here to build. People know, like, Andy Weidl's connections as well. Like, I think that this is going to really help when we're fighting for people that have been cut. And there are some people at that safety position that could really be good options. So yeah, that's an interesting one for us, for the Steelers to continue to explore. So to close out the show, because it is the dog days of summer, for want of a better term, I know that's used. And Steeler Chicken, and there's a different bit of chat going on in the live chat. And guys, sorry, I just love talking football with Shannon. So I think you guys have enjoyed it too, because there's a lot of you in the live chat and a lot of you listening live right now. I've just looked at our analytics. So sorry we haven't brought you up as much. We'll next week. But Steeler Chick says, at this time of year, I usually go back and watch old Steelers games. Shannon, and I know some people can get a lot of the games through Game Pass. Other people, you can find other things on the internet, whatever. If people are going to go back and look at a game, and everyone loves going back to 08 and 05 and whatever, but is there an old game that you love, like, watching, or that you, if you got the chance, where you had a free day, that you sit down and put on the tape for a couple of hours and just sit down there and enjoy it? Is there even a game that Steel fans might not even remember that they should go back and watch?
Well, I'm of an age that I remember late into the Steel Curtain in the late 70s. So I always enjoy reminiscing and watching that. Watching the Blitzburg defense with Greg Lloyd and Kevin Green in the 90s. All them great defenses just didn't have a quarterback. And, of course, everybody knows that I love Ben Roethlisberger. So watching him play, the competitiveness, the toughness, the talent, I thoroughly enjoyed it for 18 seasons. But if I had to say, just as a recommendation to our audience, go back last year, and it was a huge game. Franco Harris had just died. They was honoring him.
Yeah.
They played the Raiders. And what I want you to watch is they put James Pierre on, I swear I have a terrible time remembering his name, the Raiders' top receiver.
Oh, Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams. Adams lit people up last year. And when he had Derek Carr, and Derek Carr played. And I know it was ugly weather and all that, but you don't shut down Devontae Adams. But that was one time that they did put a guy on a guy and let him follow him around the field and press him. And James Pierre had a great game against Devontae Adams and held him to his worst game of the season pretty much. He had another bad game against the Saints. See, the Saints did the same thing. And so the Steelers mimicked what the Saints did and put Pierre on him. And I was shocked. I thought that would not last very long because I thought he would really abuse Pierre. So if you're wanting an interesting observation of what this defense this year could look like, go back and watch that game.
One of my favorite games ever. Absolutely favorite game ever. Christmas Day. I was wearing my new Kenny Pickett jersey, my present from my fiance. And I said, Kenny, you know what, Pickett? And as I'm saying it, I've seen the clip of Tomlin saying it. And I was like, it's one of my favorite moments. I was like, I love that moment. I can say with full authenticity that Mike Tomlin and I had the same thought at the same time. And to me, that's really special.
Yes.
Look, Shannon, I can't thank you enough for jumping on today's show. We miss Marky D as always, but this has been awesome. Hope to bring you back next week if we can. I've got loads more questions going into training camp and going into the preseason, and I think there's some really cool things we can talk about. But live chat. I know you've loved having Shannon on. A lot of you know him from BTSC as a writer. He writes fantastic articles. I can't read them enough. They are the first thing I go to when I want a written perspective. Even when I'm super busy, it's like I love doing it. You're on a number of different shows on the Steel Curtain Network, which is part of Fan First Sports. Mm-hmm. You exceptional Steeler brain, Steeler mind, all around good bloke. And I know I've seen the live chat feeding in there, but just thank you so much for joining today's show. Well,
thank you for inviting me. I love talking Steelers with you, buddy. You know, you're my, like I said, my brother from down under. And, good Lord willing, we'll do it over again next week.
Sounds good. All right, fans, stay tuned for more to come this week. We've got a lot of content coming your way. I will get a reaction video out the next day or two on the All Things Covered podcast, the Football and podcast. Some really interesting stuff there from TJ and Pat P. A lot of you have probably already seen it already. So it'll be interesting to see what you think of that. Got a couple of other sneaky things I've had in the background that I've been developing this week. Couldn't quite get it out, but can't wait to bring it to you over the next week. And as always, go Steelers.